Ever wondered what happens when an Amish woman breaks church rules? No private confession booth, no anonymous admission of guilt, just standing before hundreds of people, neighbors, family, children, and publicly describing exactly what you did wrong. 10 steps from discovery to restoration that reveal how shame and forgiveness operate in communities where privacy doesn't exist. Step 1: the sin gets discovered. Violations come to light through multiple channels in communities where privacy barely exists. Neighbors observe and report suspicious behavior. Family members inform church leaders about relatives' transgressions. Even children might inadvertently reveal information. The reporting is considered spiritual duty to maintain community purity. Church leaders investigate reports they receive. Ministers visit the accused woman at her home, asking direct questions about alleged violations. The investigation assumes reports are accurate. It's about assessing whether the woman will confess willingly or must be pressured. Confrontation by ministers happens privately at first. 2 or 3 church leaders inform her they know about her sin. They give her opportunity to confess immediately or warn that continued denial will result in public accusation during church service. Step 2: meeting with church leaders. The private meeting serves multiple purposes. Ministers must determine the full extent of the sin, whether it's isolated or a pattern, whether others were involved. The interrogation can last hours, with ministers asking increasingly personal questions the woman must answer. Ministers interrogate with assumption of guilt. Questions aren't, "Did you do this?" but "Why did you do this? And how many times?" The woman must provide complete honesty or face accusations of compounding sin through lying. Pressure to provide details can become intense and invasive. For sexual sins, ministers might ask explicit questions. For technology violations, they want exact duration and frequency. The woman must answer everything or face accusations of hiding worse violations. Step 3: preparing the confession. Church leaders provide explicit instructions about what the confession must include: admission of specific sin, acknowledgement of harm to community, expression of regret, request for forgiveness, and commitment to future obedience. The woman cannot simply say, "I'm sorry." She must follow the prescribed formula. Church leaders edit confession to ensure proper wording. If the initial draft seems insufficient, ministers rewrite it. The confession must use specific language acknowledging she sinned against God and harmed the church body. Exact wording requirements mean the woman must memorize phrases that feel humiliating. She might feel her sin was minor, but she must confess using language suggesting grave moral failure. She cannot explain circumstances, only admit wrongdoing in terms the church prescribes. Step 4: the Sunday service setup. Confession happens during regular Sunday church service, typically after the sermon. The timing ensures maximum attendance. Virtually the entire community will be present. The woman knows everyone she knows will witness her humiliation. Who must attend includes her family, children, neighbors, typically 150 to 200 people. Her parents, husband, and children old enough to understand will be there. There's no anonymous audience. Seating arrangement positions her at the front of the room, facing the congregation, visible to everyone. She cannot hide or look down. She must stand upright, face the community, and speak loudly enough for all to hear. Emotional atmosphere is heavy with judgment and anticipation. The congregation watches with mix of righteousness, curiosity, and sometimes sympathy. The weight of hundreds of eyes creates crushing pressure. Step 5: standing before the congregation. Walking to the front requires the woman to move through the seated congregation while everyone watches. The walk feels endless, every step observed. Her legs might shake, but she must walk steadily. Facing hundreds of people creates sensory overload. She sees familiar faces looking at her with disapproval or pity. She hears absolute silence. She feels her heart pounding, hands trembling, throat tightening. The physical and emotional experience is described as one of the worst experiences of their lives. The shame is visceral, burning sensation, feeling of exposure, sense that everyone can see into your soul and finds you lacking. Body language expectations require standing straight, maintaining eye contact, and speaking clearly without breaking down. Crying is acceptable, but not hysterical sobbing. She must perform the correct emotional display, remorse, and humility. Step 6. Speaking the confession. The exact words that must be said follow the formula church leaders provided. The woman speaks in Pennsylvania Dutch so everyone understands, using formal religious language rather than casual speech. She must name her sin specifically, not vague references, but clear statements like, I used a forbidden cell phone, or I committed fornication, or I defied my husband's authority. Admitting sin publicly requires speaking sentences that feel like knives in the throat. Every word confirms her failure, her weakness, her unworthiness. She must say these things about herself in front of people whose respect and approval she depends on for survival in this community. The words become permanent record in everyone's memory of who she is. Naming the violation explicitly serves to satisfy community knowledge and curiosity while also cementing the shame. A vague admission wouldn't suffice. People know what she did, and the confession must acknowledge their knowledge. The specificity also serves as deterrent to others considering similar violations. The cost in humiliation is made crystal clear. Asking forgiveness from the church requires the woman to say phrases like, I ask the church to forgive me, and I beg for your prayers as I try to do better. She's not just apologizing, but positioning herself as supplicant begging for mercy from the collective. The language reinforces power dynamics. She has violated community standards and now depends entirely on their willingness to forgive and restore her. Step 7. Answering questions. Ministers asking additional questions can extend the ordeal significantly. After the prepared confession, church leaders might ask for clarification, more details, or confirmation of specific points. The woman must answer immediately and honestly while hundreds of people listen. The questions are designed partly to ensure complete honesty and partly to deepen the humiliation that serves as punishment. Providing more details publicly can be excruciating. A question like, how many times did this occur? Forces the woman to quantify her sin in front of everyone. A question like, who else was involved, might require naming others or admitting she acted alone. Each answer provides more ammunition for gossip and judgment that will follow her for years. Community members' questions are typically filtered through church leaders, but in some communities, respected members might ask questions directly. These can be more hostile than ministers' questions. Community members might ask accusatory questions designed to humiliate rather than clarify. The woman must answer respectfully regardless of the question's tone or intent. Humiliation of interrogation serves dual purpose: punishment for the sin and deterrent to others. Watching someone endure public questioning creates powerful incentive for community members to avoid violations. The process isn't just about restoring the individual, it's about reinforcing community boundaries through demonstration of consequences. Step 8. The congregation's vote. Members voting on acceptance of the confession happens after the woman finishes speaking and answering questions. She must leave the room or turn away while the congregation discusses whether her confession seems sincere and whether they're willing to forgive and restore her. The discussion happens in her absence, but within her hearing, she knows they're debating her worthiness. What happens if the vote fails is devastating. If the congregation decides the confession wasn't sincere or complete, the woman must leave without restoration. She remains under church discipline and must confess again at a future service, possibly with additional requirements or longer shunning period. Repeated rejection is rare but not unknown, creating ongoing torture. Waiting for the decision is psychological torment. The woman stands or sits separated from the congregation, hearing murmured discussions without understanding what's being said about her. The minutes feel like hours. She doesn't know if she'll be welcomed back or rejected, and she cannot control the outcome. Her fate rests entirely in others' hands. Relief or rejection becomes clear when the ministers announce the decision. If accepted, the woman is informed she's forgiven and can return to fellowship, though likely with conditions and monitoring period. If rejected, she's told she must remain under discipline and the reasons for rejection. Either way, the emotional impact is overwhelming. Relief might cause breakdown just as much as rejection would. Step 9. Period of shunning. Temporary separation, even after confession, means the woman doesn't immediately return to normal community participation. Despite her confession being accepted, most serious sins require a period of limited shunning, typically weeks or months, during which her participation in community life is restricted as continued consequence and test of her repentance. Limited contact with family during shunning means even her own household must maintain some separation. Family members might not eat at the same table with her, might not hand items directly to her, might not engage in casual conversation. The restrictions vary by community and sin severity, but they create painful isolation within her own home. Restrictions on participation prevent her from attending social gatherings, participating in church activities beyond services, or taking communion. She must attend church services to demonstrate continued commitment, but she cannot participate fully. This visible, ongoing consequence serves as continued public reminder of her sin and punishment. Duration depends on sin severity and church leaders' assessment of her attitude. Minor sins might require 1 month of limited shunning. Major sins might require 6 months or longer. The timeline isn't always clear at the beginning, leaving the woman uncertain how long her punishment will last. Church leaders hold power to extend or reduce the period based on her behavior during it. Step 10. Restoration to fellowship. When full acceptance returns, is determined by church leaders after observing the woman during her shunning period. If she's been submissive, humble, and consistently present at services, she might be restored at the end of the prescribed time. If leaders sense ongoing rebellion or insufficient remorse, restoration might be delayed indefinitely. Welcome back. Ceremony is typically simple. An announcement during church service that the woman has completed her discipline period and is restored to full fellowship. She might stand briefly while this is announced, but there's no celebration. The restoration is practical rather than joyful. She's allowed to participate normally again, but the stain of her sin remains. Ongoing monitoring doesn't end with restoration. Church leaders and community members continue watching for signs of backsliding or repeat violations. The woman knows she'll face stricter judgment and harsher consequences if she sins again. This permanent scrutiny means she never fully escapes the shadow of her confession. Permanent reputation damage ensures the confession follows her forever. People remember. Whenever her name comes up, someone will mention, "Remember when she had to confess?" Future generations hear the stories. Her children know and feel the impact of their mother's public shame. The confession becomes permanent part of her identity in the community. Different sins, different processes. Minor versus major sin confession differences are significant. Minor violations might require only brief public acknowledgement during a single service with minimal details and short or no shunning period. Major sins demand the full process described above: detailed confession, extended interrogation, lengthy shunning, and ongoing monitoring for years afterward. Gender differences in treatment mean women often face harsher judgment than men for similar sins. A woman who commits sexual sin faces detailed interrogation about physical specifics and long-term reputation damage that affects her daughters. A man committing similar sin might confess more vaguely and resume respect more quickly. The double standard is rarely acknowledged but consistently applied. Repeat offenders face increasingly harsh terms. A woman confessing a second time for similar sin might face permanent shunning rather than temporary discipline. Church leaders view repeat offenses as evidence of fundamental character defect rather than human weakness. The system offers forgiveness, but not unlimited second chances. Unforgivable sins leading to permanent shunning include leaving the Amish church, marrying outside the faith, divorce in most communities, or persistent rebellion after multiple chances. These violations result in permanent separation. The person is alive but treated as if dead. For women, these permanent shunnings often result from desperation rather than malice, but the community shows no mercy for abandoned commitments. The psychological impact on women who've undergone public confession can last lifetimes. The trauma of standing before the entire community, detailing personal failures, and accepting public judgment creates wounds that don't fully heal. Some women report that the confession was worse than the sin itself, that they would have made different choices if they truly understood the cost.